By the 90s, Nintendo had a pretty good thing going in terms of their Mario antithesis, The Legend of Zelda. The recently released A Link to the Past would later be constantly fighting its little brothers Ocarina of Time and Twilight Princess for the title of Best Zelda Game. Plus, Nintendo recently released its first major handheld system, the Game Boy. So the folks over at Nintendo, the genius weed addicts they are, thought,
"Hey, Miyamoto, what if, we made a sequel to A Link to the Past, on the Game Boy, with Mario enemies, and dank music?"
Tezuka, call Kondo and the boys. We're going sailing.
I mean, that's probably not how it happened, but either way, we were treated to Link's Awakening in 1993. It eventually got an updated remake 5 years later on the Game Boy Color with some added features. And as it's the version which is the most available, I'll be covering the game with the DX version in mind. I figured this would be a good review to do after the reveal of Link's Awakening on Switch coming out sometime this year. So why the heck not? The game starts with Link on a voyage to Hyrule from somewhere, it's never clearly stated. However, he gets caught in a nasty storm which leaves him shipwrecked. Okay, being honest, were these credits things ever funny? Turns out, Link was saved by a nice lady named Marin, along with her father, Terran, who returns Link's shield, though he left his sword at the beach where he washed up. After getting his sword back, an owl meets with Link to tell him of what he must do to leave Koholint Island, where the game takes place. Link must wake the windfish by getting the 8 instruments scattered in various dungeons across the island. After collecting a few of these, he soon finds out that Koholint Island is a dream of the windfish, and once Link awakens the windfish, the island and everyone on it will vanish. And since Link is supposed to be the connection between the game and the player, I gotta say, this fucked me up when I was a kid. Especially considering I was really liking Marin, since it felt like she and Link had formed a pretty nice friendship with each other. And also, anytime you talk to any of the other townsfolk after you find this out, they always just seem blissfully unaware of the island they're on being a dream. I'm like, God damn it, don't do this to me, Owl. Either way, we have to do what needs to be done. Link gets all 8 instruments and defeats the final nightmare within the windfish's egg, freeing it from its slumber, making Koholint Island vanish. Though if you're able to complete the game without dying, you can see a seagull flying off in the sun, and the game infers it's Marin, making it known that she and potentially all of the others on Koholint Island survived. So we end the game with Link drifting in the ocean, possibly on his way back to Hyrule since this didn't work out too well for him. The plot is relatively simple, but that doesn't make it bad. Plus, Koholint Island is vibrant with personality. The kind-hearted Marin, the lovable goofball Terran dealing with magic power and bees, the animal village, freaking Bow Wow the Chain Chomp, I could go on. In terms of presentation, it's also quite simple, but it gets the job done. Considering the Game Boy Color isn't the largest handheld ever, the sprites for characters aren't that detailed, most of them having only 1 to 2 colors per sprite. However, the overworld is vibrant with color. Hell, there's an entire dungeon in the graveyard exclusive to the DX version of the game, where you can either get a red tunic which raises your attack, or a blue tunic which raises your defense. I always personally went with red. It was fun seeing enemies zoom across the screen when they died. Speaking of which, Link's Awakening for the most part has similar functionality compared to A Link to the Past. However, there were a few notable additions and retractions. The magic meter is gone, so items like the magic powder no longer require magic to be used. Plus, in the overworld after defeating enemies, you can gain 2 different kinds of power-ups which function similarly to the blue and red tunics. After beating 12 consecutive enemies without getting hit, you get the Guardian Acorn, which halves your defense for a short time. And after beating 40 to 45 different enemies, you get the Piece of Power, which doubles your attack. Another thing that's really cool is that if you have the blue or red tunic, these drops will boost that to ×4 defense with the acorn and blue tunic, or ×4 attack with the Piece of Power and red tunic. That's pretty fucking cool. Over the course of the game, Link gains access to almost every major item he had in A Link to the Past, including the Pegasus Boots, Hookshot, Fire Rod, and Power Bracelet / Power Glove. However, the first thing you're probably thinking is, hey, there are quite a few buttons missing. What to do? Since the Game Boy Color only had 2 face buttons and no L or R buttons, items like the Power Bracelet are instead equipable items. This even includes what was originally an extension of Link, such as his shield, which he can now hold in front of him. Personally, I never had much of an issue with this during gameplay, especially since Zelda games tend to recommend you take in your surroundings to solve the dungeon's puzzles, so while it can seem like a bit of a pace breaker, I never saw it as that large of an issue. The staples all return, such as bombs, bow and arrow, which are fucking expensive by the way, and through a bit of a lengthy trading side quest, you get the boomerang, in one of its strongest forms. Instead of just stunning enemies, it outright kills them. Same for bosses, and it can even defeat the Shadow Nightmare's final form in one hit, where you'd normally have to use arrows to defeat it. New to the series in terms of items is the Roc's Feather, which allows Link to awaken his inner Mario and jump. Speaking of inner Mario, there are a lot of references to Mario here. I already mentioned Bow Wow the Chain Chomp, but the Roc's Feather allows you to jump on Goombas, and one of the songs you get for your ocarina is obtained from Wart, which was the villain of Super Mario Bros. 2 USA, which was all a dream. Plus, one of the enemies in Dungeon 7 is Kirby, from Dreamland. Those clever dope fiends.
Miyamoto, why do you want my son to be an enemy in this Zelda game?
Sakurai, bro, I've never steered you wrong before, have I?
Well, I guess not.
Exactly. Now then, I'm gonna need to sleep this high off so we can work on developing this adventure. Pass the magic powder, Kondo.
Personally, for the first handheld Zelda game, I think Link's Awakening does enough right for it to be considered a good game. However, my major point of critique against it, the lack of buttons, while not as bad personally as other viewers can make it out to be, is still an issue with the game. Something I believe will be worked on in Link's Awakening on Switch, so you can bet your ass on purchasing that day one. With that said, I'm Pcuspard, and see you next game.